You know, I've talked a lot on this channel about how much trouble I used to get in and how I used to be a bad kid and all the crazy things I did. So I think what I'm going to start doing from now on, oh, check it out, there's an armadillo, is let's go see if we can't catch up with this armadillo. I think on Wednesdays, I'm going to try to sit down and tell stories about all those things I used to do, you know, growing up and getting in trouble. You can't really see him. He's way out there in the bushes. That's funny. Yeah, I got a little armadillo back here on the back of my property. Anyways, oh, that's what he's doing. He's rooting around. You know, last season, about this time of year, we started noticing everyone's front yards were all dug up. And apparently the armadillos come out in the middle of the night and they're looking for like grubs and stuff. So they'll get in the moist dirt and start chewing or ripping it up. And we'd be taking the dogs on a walk and everyone's yards were all chewed up. And then you'd see a dead armadillo on the side of the road that got hit by a car. Tucker, come here. Yeah, so I think, I don't know if I'm going to do them every Wednesday or every Thursday or when I plan on doing them. But I think once a week, I'd like to do, just start telling stories, you know, about all the trouble I did get in. And I think today I'm going to go over the first time I got arrested and ended up in juvenile hall. It was a crisp winter morning. No, I was about 15 years old the first time I had gotten arrested. It was actually the first time I'd really gotten in any kind of real trouble where there was actual consequences. You know, before it was always, you know, stuff at school, you get detention for the day, or with your parents, you know, you get grounded for a day, or you get your butt spanked or something like that. But I'd never really been in trouble like that. I was about 15 years old, and the only reason why I remember that is because I had just gotten my labret pierced, and I was trying to take it out to change the jewelry, and I couldn't get it out. And then when I ended up in juvenile hall, they made sure it came out. So we'll get there. I was hanging out so I had a neighbor growing up. She was the same age as me, and she had a younger sister who sadly died at like 7 or 8 years old from cancer. But she was my age, and one of my school friends that I had met, I think in like 6th grade, ended up being a friend up until, you know, 7th and 8th grade. They had started, you know, hooking up and being a couple. Now, looking back on all this, so one thing that I thought, that being you know, somebody who partied and did drugs and everything, I always felt like I was going to be a good parent because I would be able to like judge other parents and be like, this person's on drugs or not. My mom, however, didn't grow up that way, didn't grow up around people that were on drugs. So when she would meet someone that was on drugs, it would just go over her head. But looking back on it now, this dude's mom was on all kinds of drugs, and she was always talking about, you know, her medications. They were all pharmaceutical drugs, but it was like heavy, you know, antidepressants and painkillers and stuff like that. And she was always zonked out. Anyway, so this is my buddy's mom. And my neighbor friend who started dating him at some point had ran away and was living at their house together. Well, one day, at that age, we were always going into stores and stealing bottles of liquor and cigarettes and stuff like that. So the plan was to send her into the store, my neighbor, her into the store to go steal a bottle of liquor. My buddy's brother and I were going to wait outside for her. At the time, we were on bicycles, so she was going to hop on our pegs and ride back to the house. And he lived fairly close to the grocery store. He was maybe I don't know, a mile down the road, if that, half mile down the road. It wasn't far from the grocery store. Anyways, I don't know why we sent her in there. Maybe just because we had gone into that store so many times and did this, we just felt like maybe sending her in there was a better idea. I'm not really sure. It's been 25 years, 30 years. 25 years. It's been a long time. Anyway, so we send her in there, and as she's coming out of the store, she gets caught. And my buddy's brother and I kind of try to wrestle her away from the store clerk, who was probably just like a cashier or something like that. We tried to get her away and we couldn't. So then we gave up and we hauled butt home and told my buddy. Now, mind you, my buddy, for being 15 years old, he was big. Like, he was a legit big kid. He grew up super white trash. So like, he was tough as nails. You know, he had older cousins and stuff like that. And we went and told him, we're like, hey, they got her, dude. Which means now they're going to call her parents, and she's going to end up having to go back home. And at the time, she's a runaway living with him. So he's like, we got to go get her. I'm like, let's go. So we go back down to the grocery store thinking we were going to go in there as heroes and just kick in the door and rescue her out of there. Well, when we get there, they were still kind of in the front, like, talking to her, you know, not in the outside the building, but like in the front of the store, still talking to her. And oh no, she was in the back, because we started going to the back of the store, and the clerks knew why we were there, because they had already interacted with his brother and I in the parking lot. So they already knew we came back for trouble. And a guy that worked there, I don't know if he was a butcher at the time, but he'll come into play a little later in the story. It's kind of funny. Was walking down one of the aisles and got in a fight with my buddy. And like I said, we're 15, so maybe this guy was 18, 20 years old, you know? And he ends up punching that guy and then like throwing him into like a display case type thing. And the guy breaks his arm. So this is one reason why we got in a bunch of trouble. Well, since he had gotten hurt, and since we assaulted we got in little scuffles, me and his brother, with some of the other store clerks. Mind you, we're 15 years old, so a bunch of grown adults were able to wrangle us up pretty quick and take us to the back. And at this point, I still think I'm not going to get in trouble, because I don't get in trouble for anything kind of type attitude. Anyways, dang mosquitoes. They take us to the back. They call the cops. Cops come and arrest us and take us off to juvenile hall. And mind you, at the time, like I said, I'd never been in trouble for anything. So I was all in tears, and my mom couldn't bail me out. It was a Friday, and you're not seeing the judge till Monday. So you're in juvenile hall, basically, is what happened. Seems like I always get arrested on like a Thursday or a Friday and end up having to stay in just because of the courts aren't open. It's happened to me more than once. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, we go to juvenile hall for a couple days. We get arraigned and set free on Monday. And we all end up getting charged with, I couldn't even tell you what the charges were, but we all had to do community service. We were on probation for a while. I got to do community service at a park that we lived down the street from. And ironically, I had to do community service there multiple occasions. I mean, if I keep telling these stories, they'll start to all kind of blend together. But yeah, that was the first time. Oh, so my labret piercing. I'd been trying to take that out all day to change the jewelry. And when I got in there, they're like, you need to take that out. And I was like, I can't. And they're like, well, we're going to cut it out. I was like, let me just try one more time. And it came right out. Of course, it came right out. And then when I got in there, I had, ironically, when I was in juvenile hall, had run into an old neighbor of mine who was a troubled kid. He was in there, and he kind of showed me the ropes, you know, for the first couple days. And we broke a little piece off of a comb, and I put it through there so it wouldn't close up over the weekend. So when I got out, I got to put it back in. And as far as that store clerk, that his arm got broken. So, you know, about 6 years later, a buddy of mine ended up getting a job at that grocery store as a butcher. And that guy still works there and still remembers me. And we ended up going to like a company party one night. And I was like, are you sure you want me to go? He's like, yeah, he's totally cool. He's totally cool. And I was like, man, I don't know. We broke that guy's arm some years ago. But he was cool. We ended up going to the party. Things were fine. The guy didn't give a crap. I'm sure the grocery store took care of him just fine. And our restitution paid for it. But yeah, that was the first time I got arrested. First time I really had to ever suffer any kind of real consequences at about 15 years old. Yep. So stay tuned till next week. Next week I'll tell another story of how I was a degenerate, screwed up my life. Appreciate y'all watching.